Hey soccer fans, Nick here with the Feed the Fire podcast, where we're talking all things Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer. And speaking of the Fire, it is the home opener this upcoming weekend against CF Montreal. I will be there. I can't wait to be there to see the team, how they're going to look at home. Can't wait to see the fans. Can't wait to tailgate, experience everything there is about a Chicago Fire home game. But first, we do need to talk about that season opener down in Houston, unfortunately. But you know what? We are going to get through all of that. There are some bright spots to take away from that match, so don't think it is all doom and gloom. But looking ahead to the home opener, if you guys are interested in going, if you want to learn more about the Chicago Fire, please reach out to me, talk to me. I'll happy to have a candid conversation with you off air. You can find me on social media accounts at Glasshouse Soccer or via email, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. And if you want to learn more about the organization, season tickets, getting involved into the team, what are the benefits, things of that nature, let me know. I will hook you up with my season ticket rep. She has done a fantastic job for my family this season already. And we're only a week into it. So very excited to continue to work with Stella and everyone over at the Fire organization. Also, if you haven't checked out the last episode, please go listen in to the interview with Fabian Wrinkle and everything that we talk about as far as journalism and podcasts and independent content around the MLS, to his journey and what he thinks about the Chicago Fire. And we wrap it all up with his new venture, Kickbase, that he is a part of, and how they have tried to and are slowly reinventing Major League Soccer fantasy sports. So go check that out in the last episode. And today we are going to recap that Houston Dynamo match. We're going to finalize our player profile series, looking at our attacking players, our strikers and wingers. But first we got to get to the mailbag, as they say. We had some great emails. I love that people are reaching out, wanting to talk more. The season is underway. Got an email last week from Donnie who says, Nick, I can't wait for the season to start. I was feeling rather confident until the last half of the last preseason match. We still have some defensive frailties. Ludd, Mueller, Boazzi look good in my opinion. Hoping Bamba's injuries are simply minor ones. Fighting my fears of gloom. That is, doesn't think that Zink will have as good a season in 2025, but that's probably due to him being a lifelong Wolverhampton Wanderers supporter. That is great, Donnie. I love the reference to Wolves there. Like, that's something that just, being a Chicago fan, you're kind of used to. And from a Premier League sense, there was a long period of time where I was rallying behind Everton. So I can feel for you there. But Donnie also says, props to your research on the players' prior activities before joining the Fire. In one of your previous episodes, I thought you provided more background than some other pods. Oh, cool. Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate the compliment. But I got to say, each one of our Chicago Fire podcasts, I think, comes at it with a little bit of a different angle, where we've got some really great journalism coming out of Men in Red 97. We've got some really great behind the scenes and content from CHGO Fire. You've got Joe Chats at OnTap Sportsnet, again, doing some great journalism and having those conversations with players, his chats, as you'll see on social media. And I just try to come at it from a very excited fan standpoint. So I appreciate the compliment, but yeah, man, you can find any bit of coverage. And I think if you listen to kind of the four major content creators that I like to think of them as, and yeah, I'll throw myself in there, I think you get a really good picture of the Fire. But you're absolutely right in your analysis, the defensive errors, and we're going to talk about those breakdowns in this Houston game. After the game, I got an email from another friend of the show, fellow season ticket member Israel, who says, Nick, we came to the game in Houston, and unfortunately, the second half was really disappointing. I sent you a picture, and it was taken while they were still winning. And yeah, I can see the smiles on you and your son's face from the match. They're there, they're repping, they're holding up the Fire flag down in Houston there on the concourse. It's a great shot, guys. But then Israel goes on to say, just like the Fire, the weather cooled off so much in the second half, but it was really nice. It was really nice earlier in Houston. So, Israel, I'm glad you and your son had a great time despite the result of the match. Very cool that you got to go see the stadium down there, see a new soccer city. There's so many fans out there of Major League Baseball and the great American pastime who want to go visit every single ballpark. Like, I would love I'd love to go to everyone. I don't know if that's going to be a realistic thing for me. Maybe in my retirement, I'll just bounce around from soccer match to soccer match if my wife will still have me at that point. But that is a very cool thing that you got to go see Houston. And yeah, it really was, to be cliche, a tale of two halves. The Fire did just enough in that first half to get the lead, and then we saw what happened. And then we get Ryan's sentiment, another friend of the show. Ryan, thanks for writing in. And by the way, guys, Ryan actually called Kuiper's golden boot season this year. So he is on track with that first goal in the first game, but we'll see how things pan out. But Ryan says, MLS is back, and I missed it so much. But what I watched from the Fire does have me worried. Like last year, until Franco arrived in the year prior, they don't look dangerous in the final third. 100%, Ryan. We're going to look at the stats, and it's pretty much going to be possession with no threat. Guti provided enough skill offensively and covered up the fact the Fire did not have the type of playmaker or player with his vision. Now with Guti gone, I think it highlights it even more. I'm going to agree with you because they did rely on Gutierrez a lot to create, and you saw in his last season with the Fire last year in 2025, he started shooting from distance. It's really pulled out defenders. Now, Ludd is supposed to be that. Saletros is supposed to help that. Zinkernagel was supposed to kind of do a little bit more, and the team was supposed to kind of raise the floor and have a lot more contributions from different players as far as goal scoring, assists, and goal contributions. But we didn't see that this first game. So hopefully that's just kind of first game jitters, kind of feeling things out, getting used to each other at full regular season game speed, but we'll see as time goes on. Now Ryan finishes his email saying, unless the team gels quickly, we Fire fans seem to say this every year, I think we'll be around the 6 or 7 spot in the East when Franco returns. If he returns at a similar level to last year, I think the 4 spot is where we can finish. I agree with you, Ryan, and yeah, it's funny that we do keep saying that 6, 7 spot, 5 to 8 range, because I think so many fans look at tiers or ranges that it's either you're winning the Shield, or you're a top 4 team in your conference, a home playoff game team. You're a bottom 4 team in your conference. You're playoff worthy, but you're probably not going to be getting that home advantage. You're not going to be competing for trophies unless you get hot going into the playoffs. Then you've got teams who are just fighting for either a play-in or a final playoff spot, and then guys who bottom out that we know aren't really going anywhere come midseason. Also, if I didn't say it before, Ryan's subject line in his email was, uh-oh. And yeah, that's exactly what we all said. Uh-oh, Houston, there's a problem in Houston for the Fire. But yes, at this point, I think the Fire still playoff team in that 5 to 8 range, or in that 6-7 spot, as you say here, Ryan. Just based on last season, the continuity, the players returning, the additions in the offseason, I think they've done enough to at least cement themselves as a playoff team, but not quite a home playoff team or trophy contender at the moment. Always subject to variance. So I want to thank all you guys for writing in. Great way to kick off the conversation here as we take a look at this Houston Dynamo match recap. Now, I did say it's not all doom and gloom, but man, did it seem like doom and gloom from even before kickoff when we saw the injury report. Jack Elliott was out with a head injury. Victor Radojevic out with a lower body injury. Andrew Gutman, lower body injury, reportedly a calf injury. Jonathan Dean, not out due to injury, and I should have looked before I started recording. I told myself to do it, and I forgot to. But I'm wondering if the speculation was that his wife was having the child and that he was going to be away from the team in order to be there for the birth. So I haven't seen confirmation of that. I'll have to go take a look, but check out Fire Socials page. They usually do a good job about celebrating the big family events from their players as the season goes on. So look out for that. And if that is the case, let me be the first to say congrats, Jonathan Dean. Also, we know Andre Franco is out, still recovering from his torn ACL from last season, and Jonathan Bamba also out due to a lower body injury, something he picked up at the end of the Coachella Valley Invitational, the preseason tournament. Kind of kept him as individual workouts throughout the first week of the leading up to the first game of the regular season, and we did not get to see him on Saturday night. Now, look, it sucks that these guys are out. And I know it's just the first game of the season, but I'm kind of torn between two worlds here. It is the first game of the season. It's a non-conference opponent. It's an away match. But it still counts. it still counts. And the fact that none of these guys can go is worrying. That there are so many Fire players out the first week of the season is concerning. Now, I think Berhalter and the staff didn't have much of a choice. They couldn't force these guys and then have this many injuries linger on throughout the entire season, as well as US Open Cup and Leagues Cup. So I think they did have to be very, very conservative in week one if they are going to salvage this season. And yes, did I say the word salvage the season in week one? Because, yeah, that many injuries is concerning and could derail a team with aspirations like the Fire. So I think the fact that it was week one non-conference away game, the Fire said, look, we'll take what we can get out of it. And they completely flipped their starting lineup from anything we saw in the preseason or anything anyone was expecting. They ended up starting Brady in goal and then having three center backs, starting Sam Rogers, Joel Waterman, and Boazi. You had your outside backs in Barroso and Haile Selassie. So you already switched the formation. Now you've got Haile Selassie playing as a wingback. Your midfield, this is where I expected more. You had all the injuries, you had the formation change, but what was working in preseason was Davila, Saletros, and Ludd in your middle, in the middle of the field there. You also had Zinkernagel as kind of a play wherever you want to, winger, midfielder, kind of a combo thing. And then you had Kuipers as your lone striker up top. So if you looked at a lineup card, it looked like a 5-4-1, but we know that we know that Davila and Saletros were a little bit more defensive-minded. Ludd, Zinkernagel a little more attack-minded. Zinkernagel talked about having some more freedom this match to go where he needed to, but ultimately it didn't produce goal-scoring opportunities, didn't produce goals or points. So the injuries hampered the Fire, probably a little down in the locker room over a lot of these last-minute injuries. The formation change really did them in, but they did just enough in that first half to take the lead. Just enough. But as Berhalter said, it looks like they didn't come out of the locker room that second half. Now, John Donovan's going to give us his analysis on this take, and I'm really thrilled that John's back, spitting fire here on the show. But just to talk about the goals here, the first goal scored by Hugo Kuipers, 31st minute, and it was his pressing and his hustle play, forces a turnover, jumps on the loose ball, takes it right at the keeper, cuts right to get in front of the defender and make the keeper think he's shooting across goal, but then puts it high and near post. Brilliant finish by Kuipers. Keeper had no chance. But similarly, that's how Houston gets back in it with their new Brazilian signing, Guilherme, in the 67th minute. He just gets a ball pinged straight up the middle to him and just outruns Sam Rogers. Just beats him in a foot race. And this is where I'm critical of the coaching in some aspects, as well as Sam Rogers in some aspects. Because first of all, if you're going to play three in the back like that, you can't be in a situation where your center backs are that high up the field and are going to get beat in a foot race. Like, Houston absolutely recognized it, took advantage of the Fire not adjusting to Houston playing a higher line here, right? So the team didn't make the adjustments when they saw Houston playing higher, looking to force turnovers, looking to spring quick counterattacks like that. And Saletros even admitted such in postgame. Like, we didn't make they pressed higher, we didn't make the adjustments. Now, goals are rarely ever one person's fault. So you as a squad didn't adjust to what Houston was doing. That's on the coaching staff and maybe a little bit on the players for not recognizing it. Rogers completely misread this play. I mean, it looked like he was trying to step up and either pull an offside trap or get in front of Guilherme and intercept a pass, but you're the last man back, and wherever the ball goes, it's going to be past you. So that is another problem. He didn't recognize Guilherme's speed. He didn't read the play. And, maybe Brady plays it a little bit more aggressively off his line. He comes out, but I can't recall exactly where Guilherme was when he shot. Could Brady have continued to charge out, or did he try to read it and go left? When it's a one-on-one situation like that, you just got to go out and just cause havoc when you're the keeper there. You can't. I don't think, and I'm not a goalkeeper coach. Unless you're, under fifth grade, then I'm your guy. then I can coach you up. But at this level, I don't know if Brady's taught, come out to maybe the 10, 12 yard spot and kind of hold and see which way he goes. Or maybe he was taught go right at the guy's feet. Or maybe he thought Rodgers was going to somehow make up and force Guilherme to go a certain way. But, maybe Brady too could have played it a little bit more aggressively there. Also on the play, speaking of injuries, Sam Rodgers goes down and it ends up getting subbed out for Chris Cupps about 11 minutes later after that goal. So we had problems there. But then Cupps comes in the 76th minute. Rodgers goes out. Mueller comes in the 76th minute. Ludd goes out, and boom, goal, 78th minute for Houston. The second one was good build-up and a good initial save from Brady, but the entire defense gets caught ball watching. Now, is that a result of having these new guys coming in and maybe not being organized? Or is it just a result of Barroso completely losing his man, the Fire defense allowing close range shots, Brady's making reaction saves, can't direct the ball away from the goal down towards the touchline, instead has to do his best just to get a hand on it, and it kind of ends up at Guilherme's feet, who follows the play, follows the shot, and is able to just pop it in over Brady for the game winner. So the lack of adjustments, the injuries worry me. But here's the positives. Still staying positive. Week 1. Kuipers only needs one chance to make a difference. And that can be the difference in a win or a loss. That can be the difference in securing the win or giving up a tying goal. Like, Kuipers just needs that one opportunity to make a difference. And you give him 3 or 4 of those throughout the game, you're looking at pretty good odds of him finding the back of the net multiple times in a match and taking home all 3 points. Also, these are points dropped to a team in the Western Conference. Win at home against Montreal, you're all good. So I think I saw someone online say that it's a must-win game against Montreal. I'm not going to go that far, but you really do need something positive here, because if you're starting the season 0-2, if you're starting the season with 1 point after a great preseason and a great offseason, you're just going to be playing catch-up, and it's going to put that much more pressure on the players mentally and physically as the season goes on. All right, at this point, I'm going to turn the show over to our good friend John Donovan and hear all of his takes on this matchup against Houston. John, take it away.
Nick, John Donovan here. It's always great to have the MLS season back. I look forward to participating a little bit with your show. I love your podcast. It really is, I think, the best in the business for the Chicago Fire. Nick, I was looking forward to this Houston game since Christmas. I was looking forward to it. And when I saw the starting lineup, I must admit I was somewhat mad at the lineup. I looked forward to, I wasn't aware that Elliott was injured, Bombia was injured, Gutman was injured. That really hurt the squad. But some of the additions that Berhalter used confuses me. Last year, he used guys that continually would make the same mistakes, like Tehran. He would put Tehran in time after time until finally realizing this guy was not going to kick. He was not good for the squad, and they traded him off. I have real doubts on Barroso and Davila. Barroso's defense, almost every game that he plays, the whole game, there's something in there that affects the outcome of the game. And last night was a prime example. He was ball watching on that second goal. I mean, you have to be as quick as possible. You've got to mark your guy, and he went towards a guy that was already marked and left his man open by the goal for the score. Every game last year that he got in meaningful positions, he made, he's really good on the offense. He's got nice moves. He really can drill the ball in that line. He had one good shot yesterday, but something always happens. And Davila, I don't trust his play. I mean, he is going to be a card guy. He got one last night, I believe, or got away from one. But I have to scratch my head and why he's starting him over good American players like Oriel. I would use him as that backup to our forward line. Just the lineup really confused me last night. Haile Selassie is another guy that, yeah, he's a good soccer player, but can anybody that follows the Fire a lot say that he's a goal scorer? He had a wonderful shot last night, nice timing, everything, but he just has not helped this squad over the years. This is his third year, and he just, I don't know. I mean, last night he didn't help them. I would have much rather seen Mueller in that position. Mueller's a guy that does score, and he creates a lot of stuff up front. It hurts the squad big time to have Gutman and Bombia out. It's a much better team. I think it's a potentially winning squad in the MLS when you've got Bombia, Gutman on that left side, and really Dean and our German friends up front, Zinkernagel. It's a much better squad than Barroso. I understand Berhalter's ideas that Barroso has the potential, but he continuously hurts the squad down the line. The one good thing you got to say about the Fire is this young man from South Africa. He is good. He is a good player. I can't say his name that well, Mabokazi, but what a dude. I think he and Elliott should be a tremendous team together. Rogers, I think he got caught yesterday. He had a bad ankle. He wasn't up to the speed of that center forward for Houston, who burned him on that first goal. It was a great pass. They caught him right on the offside line. The guy was moving, and it's rare that you can see a guy dribble and maintain the speed that guy did. It was a good game. I thought it was a good game. I was somewhat surprised with the substitutes, but a lot of it was because of injury. I've got to scratch my head why he didn't include Dean on that bench list, because they could have used him yesterday. Barroso obviously was struggling with the defense. If he had put Dean in, he's a lot better on the defensive side than Barroso. I think he was gambling, thinking that, my gosh, Bombi is gone. Gutman's out. I've got to maintain that forward push, and Barroso's a little better than Dean. But you give up so much when you do that, Nick. So I'm hoping, next week I believe it's Montreal, and they got creamed. I wonder why Montreal and sometimes Colorado are even in this league. You don't see big DP signings. You see them taking guys that have been cut from other squads. The Fire should come away with the win on that game. But, I think Berhalter's got this tendency to look at potential rather than facts. And Barroso has the fact of he gives up critical errors at the end of games. And it happened last night. Berhalter knows that. But he gambled with the loss of the offense of putting Barroso up there thinking it would work. Well, it didn't. Although I like Berhalter. He's so much better than who we had. Oh, I hate to even say this name, Klopas. But let's go Fire. I'm optimistic about this year. I love the way they're developing this squad. I don't like the way they're only starting 2 Americans and have very few on the bench. When I was playing, there wasn't any opportunities for American players to advance their skills. And if you go by the Fire, the way they're looking now, they're out buying international slots, so they didn't have to use the amount of American players. So that's a negative side for me. When you look at Philadelphia, how they develop their academies, that's wonderful. My grandson is in the Chicago Fire system, and you got to see the amount of young kids that are trying to make that big squad. Very few will, but they're all trying, and the facilities and everything's there for them. But the team has to allow them to be seen, to see American players that have been developed by the system. I think there's 2 players, 3, I'm sorry, Brady, Oriel, and Pineda. And Oriel and Pineda did not see time, I don't believe, last night. So next week they should win. They'll be 1-1 coming into a competitive Schedule can't be happier with the MLS playing again. So thank you very much, Nick. Take care.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the contributions, as always. And for those of you who may be new to the show, who found us in the offseason or are just finding us here after match 1 of the MLS season, I gotta let you know, John actually played professional soccer in Venezuela for a couple seasons when he was younger, and also continues to do some local scouting of talent for a few different men's D1 programs. So John knows what he's talking about. He's got a good eye, but ultimately he is a fan of the game and a supporter of the Fire, and I love his insights. So John, thank you so much. Looking forward to your contributions throughout the season. Just to wrap up this Houston-Chicago match recap, couple quick stats to look at. The Fire ended up with 54% possession, but what did that translate into offensively? 6 shots, 3 on target. Not much there. They ended up with 498 passes, 85% passing completion, but again, nothing to show for it from a chance creation perspective. 5 corners, not bad. 4 crosses, not bad. No offsides. You know, your offsides 2-3 times, it shows you're trying to stretch the lines. And Houston was pressing higher. I would have expected the Fire to have a couple offside call here like Houston did. And it shows maybe they were starting to play a little conservatively in that second half, or maybe they were just trying to play too much passing in the middle. Brady gets credited with 2 saves. The defense has 4 clearances, and here's a big stat: 20 fouls called against the Fire, including 2 yellow cards. Now, there were 3 yellows against Houston, but they only committed 11 total fouls. But 20 fouls against the Fire, that's a lot. So you saw that they were really on the back foot, especially in that second half. If you like expected goals, Houston only had 1 XG off of 10 shots, 4 on target. The Fire, 0.7 XG on 6 shots, 3 of which were on target. And I think I saw somewhere that in the first half, they only had like a 0.1 XG or something like that. So Kuipers was able to convert a low percentage chance, and then the Fire did nothing pretty much the rest of the game. Okay, let's look at our next segment. We are going back to our player profiles. We are finishing it out. We are looking at our strikers and our wingers in this episode. And we've got to start with our man up top, Hugo Kuipers, designated player of the Fire, 29 years old, 6'1", 165 pounds, from Liège, Belgium. Came up in Belgium as a youth player, gets his breakthrough, turns pro in 2015 with Standard Liège. Also goes on loan a bit, plays in Ergotelis, plays in Olympiakos in Greece, goes on loan to Ajaccio, goes back to Belgium playing for Mechelen and Ghent, and then ends up with the Chicago Fire after a Golden Boot season at Ghent. Not to be confused with Genk, G-E-N-K. Now, Kuipers, interestingly, has 3 appearances and a goal for Belgium's U19 teams. This was way back in 2016. And always has seemed to be like on the fringe of the Belgian national team. We've seen the Belgian national team with guys like Fellaini, like Lukaku, like De Bruyne in recent history, and it was like the coaching staff and the federation never really wanted to roll over to the next group of players, and it really cost Kuipers. You know, if he is not getting call-ups after a Golden Boot season in your domestic league, I don't know what else he's going to have to do to get a call-up. And there were a lot of Belgian fans who really wanted to see him representing the national team at the senior level. But unfortunately, didn't work out for him in that way. Now, so when he did come to the Fire, excuse me, a little tongue-tied there, he signed in February of 2024, and it was a club record fee, $12 million signing with an additional $2 million in potential add-ons. So the Fire really invested in Kuipers, and that's something to keep in mind as we look forward to all the speculation of Robert Lewandowski. The Fire really invested in Kuipers, and it wouldn't be a good business move to bring in a guy to replace your club record signing unless you really think you can make some money back on a potential transfer, or you have a plan to get these two guys to work in tandem. Now, the flip side to that, and it's a valid argument, is it doesn't matter how much you've spent on your current striker, you do whatever you can to bring in Lewandowski. And maybe that's the Fire's approach. But we'll see. We'll see what happens this summer. Now, over the last 2 seasons with the Fire, Kuipers has appeared in 31 and 33 games, all starts over the last 2 seasons. In 2024, 10 goals, 2 assists, and in 2025, 17 goals, 3 assists. Was really in the Golden Boot hunt for most of the season, and then kind of tailed off as the Fire hit some mid to late season doldrums there. Also, 2 goals in the postseason last season. Now, Kuipers, to me, his level has always been that of a star MLS player. And last season, with better tactics, better structure, better supporting players, the rest of the league found out about it. Like, we as fans knew what he was capable of when we saw him in his first year in 2024, but without anything around him and without a setup to provide him service, he was just at the mercy of multiple defenders every time. You know, Shaqiri's just lobbing balls over the top to him. What's Kuipers going to do? Everyone knows what's coming. Now, Kuipers is a player who does need service, but is a guy who can create some chances for himself, like we saw against Houston. And when he's not receiving service, or when he's not given proper instructions in a particular structure or style, he will drop deeper to come and get involved in the play. He will press high if the other team tries to play a possession-based game and build out of the back. The man's motor does not stop. So, what do we do this season? Will he increase his scoring? He's gone from 10 to 17. Ryan, as I said at the beginning of the show, predicted 30 goals this season, if not a Golden Boot campaign. But he will constantly be a nuisance for backlines. He has the ability to score with his head, either foot. He gets tap-ins, poacher goals, can strike from 15 yards out, can lay it off for his teammates. Like, Kuipers is I don't want to say he's like an all-around great striker, like, tons of because he does like those closer goals, those tap-ins, those poacher goals, the dinks, the headers off the corner kicks and set pieces, things like that. But the man does have a versatile skill set, and with the rest of the midfield built around him to give him better service, but also to help unlock Bamba a little bit more, Zinkernagel a little bit more, though it's hard to beat his last season. To have Lud step forward, to have Soletros step forward, right? Even bringing in Mueller and Selassie off the bench, those are guys who have played with Kuipers now a couple of years, and will be able to continue to provide him service, know how to work with him. Like, he is going to, I think, exceed his goal total from last season, if it definitely exceed his goal contribution total from last season. So I love that he is going to continue to be the first option, but that the Fire have multiple options. I don't expect the 30 goals, but you get him 20 plus with maybe 5 or 6 assists on the season. I think we're looking pretty good. Now, Kuipers had a base salary of $3,238,000 last season, but a guaranteed salary of $3,528,044. His contract does expire at the end of 2026, but there is a club option for 2027. Now, Kuipers is the starting striker. When he's healthy, he's the starting striker. Even when he's not 100%, probably the starting striker, because he's the only true striker on the team that has played at this high level. The club does have 2 other strikers here, local guys, Jason Shukaluk and Dean Bolts. Shukaluk, I shouldn't say local, he is from Erie, Pennsylvania, but was part of CF2 in recent history. He's 23 years old, 6'1", 161 pounds. This is his first season with the senior team, though last year did get a few short-term call-ups. Actually made 1 appearance last season. He got 14 minutes against DC United in that 7-1 blowout, and last season was the MLS Next Pro Golden Boot winner. That's back-to-back MLS Next Pro Golden Boot winners for the Fire. David Pareba in 2024. Now, I do expect Shukaluk to be the third striker option this season because of his inexperience and youth at the top level. I would expect, if Kuipers is out, to see a mix of maybe Mueller or Martin Haile Selassie, or maybe trying some sort of different dual striker formation. I do think Shukaluk will be in the mix for that third striker option. Now, he's 23 right now, so the Fire as a club need to predict where his ceiling will be, how to position him for the next season. Will he be a piece in the future? I expect to see him get minutes in the season this year in meaningful games so that they can properly evaluate him. He's also playing for a contract. He's on a 1-year deal, and I do expect at least one option to be picked up by the club, and they can make a decision on him next year. We'll see what the striker picture looks like after the summer window as well. I don't believe he has a lot, if any, transfer or trade value now, but could become a decent backup MLS striker. And if the Fire do decide to move on him, or if there is a team who is injury riddled, desperate, just needs someone to come in and get some minutes, maybe similar to a Justin Reynolds situation to Kansas City, there might be a team who would do a cash trade for a guy like Jason Shukaluk. His contract runs again through this season with options for 2027 and 2028. Unfortunately, I don't have salary info because this is his first year with the senior club, and the MLSPA hasn't put it out. Now, the other striker option, true striker on the roster, Dean Bolts, 19 years old, 6'2", from Palatine, Illinois, just up the road here from me. 2024 Big Ten Freshman of the Year at University of Wisconsin. Spent all of last season with CF2. I don't expect him to get many senior team minutes this season, barring multiple injuries, like I said, to Kuipers, Mueller, Haile Selassie, or Shukaluk, or anyone else that could play as a striker. He's a developmental piece that the Fire could develop into a good backup striker in a couple, 3 seasons, and then who knows what his ceiling will be from there. I try not to project too far out or try to project the guy's career. I try to project through the end of their contract and what the club is going to be looking for during that period of time. And I think if he can develop into a backup striker, he will earn himself a new contract and then the ability to fight for a starting spot. Speaking of that, his contract runs through 2027 with 2 one-year club options after that. His base and guaranteed salary last season were $80,622. I think that's league minimum. Not that I'm saying he's a league minimum player, but just as a reference. So those are the 3 true strikers on the squad: Kuipers, Shukaluk, and Bolts. Kuipers, the one with the MLS and high-level experience, whereas Shukaluk and Bolts, like I said, fighting for that probably 3rd striker spot. Now, looking at our wingers here, we got to start with Jonathan Bamba, the other designated player on the team, 29 years old, 5'9", 159 pounds, from Alfortville, France. Spent his youth career in France, turns pro with Saint Etienne in 2013, plays for their B team, moves up to their A team, but also has loans to Paris FC, Saint-Tropez, and Angers. He really finds himself at Lille, though, and in 2018 through 2023, ends up with 167 appearances for the club, 27 goals, and wins Ligue 1 in France, the top flight with Lille, in I think it's the 2021 season. From there, he ends up moving to Celta Vigo, and then plays 3 seasons with them, and then in 2.5, right? Yeah, 2.5 seasons, and then in 2025 comes aboard with the Fire. Now, he did come up in the French youth system, has appearances at the U16, 18, 20, and 2021 level, has 21 appearances for the French U21 youth teams from 2017 to 2019, but then makes his flip and declares for Ivory Coast, and at the senior level has 10 appearances and a goal for Ivory Coast. Last season, 34 games played, 32 starts, 5 goals, 10 assists. Now, those numbers are not designated player numbers, and that is the criticism of him, and that's where he has to step up. I'm hopeful that with a full offseason of rest, with another offseason in Berhalter's system, and with another season of getting to play with Zinkernagel and Kuipers, that this is going to increase. We saw him start to develop even a better partnership with Goodman in the preseason. I'm hoping that these that these 15 goal contributions, and again, 10 assists is nothing to sniff at, but for a DP, starting winger, and a player of his caliber, we need to see more production out of him without a doubt. Now, he did have a goal and 2 assists in the postseason as well, but I would, again, like to see him, and I think he needs to, and the club needs him to step up and produce more in the regular season. Just kind of getting back to his history here, the Fire did acquire him from Celta Vigo for a $2 million transfer fee. Now, there's 2 things I love about Joe Bamba here. His ability to be an outlet and his ability to turn around and get around a defender. So last season, he was really the focus for the center backs and the D mids to distribute the ball in transition, which resulted in some early success and offensive chances for the team. And yeah, even though he didn't turn that into goal contributions to things on the stat sheet, he was able to really keep opposing defenses honest and again be that outlet to get the Fire defense out of trouble. Young guys like Orahel and Davila, who are getting their first taste of MLS first team minutes regularly, really relied on Bamba to kind of be a guy that they could play a tough pass to or play almost a blind pass to and expect him to either get on the end of it or do enough where it allows the defense to reset. Now, as his performance tended to wane, maybe to fatigue, maybe due to Davila taking over for Orahel and having to readjust, or teams having a game plan for him, Zinkernagel stepped up and carried the load, but Bamba still remained a threat, which did open things up for Zinkernagel and Kuipers. I imagine his role will be similar this season, given the DP tag and the time to adjust. I do expect him to be in that double-digit goals and assist range. You know, that double-double, that 10 and 10, something like that for him. And barring injury, he's a starter on the left wing. Also, on top of all the stuff he does on the pitch, he's got that winning pedigree. Like I said, he did win the League One title with Lille in 2021, won the Africa Cup of Nations in 2023 with Ivory Coast, and so he's got some championship pedigree, which he can bring to this team. Now, his contract runs through the 2027 season with an option for 2028. He has a base salary of $5 million and a guaranteed salary, again, last season's numbers, of $5,581,806. Flipping to the other side of the formation, the other starter on the wing, 31-year-old Philip Zinkernagel, 5'9", 161 pounds, from Copenhagen, Denmark. Spent his youth career in Denmark with Copenhagen and Nordsjælland. I got to work on my Danish pronunciations there a little bit. My father-in-law's got some family there. I got to figure that out. I know they're happy that we picked up another Dane on the team. They really enjoyed. Gosh, I'm picturing his face, but I can't remember his name. Our former Dane, who they got to meet when they visited Chicago and came to a game. So I'm sure they're happy. So shout out to my Danish family over there. But breaks through with HB Køge in 2013. Spends most of his career in Denmark and Norway. Also ends up getting picked up by Watford and goes on loan to Nottingham Forest from 2021 to 2022. Plays in Olympiakos, plays in Greece. Only gets one game for them, goes immediately on loan to Standard Liège, and then ends up playing at Club Brugge for a period of time. Gets loaned back to Bodo Glimt. So did he have a little overlap with Kuipers 2023, 2024? Let me go back and check. No overlap with Kuipers. I'm getting my Belgian teams mixed up there. He was with Club Brugge. But Zinkernagel proved himself to be an offensive threat wherever he went, had success with his clubs wherever he went, had 4 call-ups to some of the Denmark youth national teams as well, and last season with the Fire, an amazing performance out of nowhere. I don't think anyone expected him to play this well. 15 goals, 15 assists in the regular season, gets himself an all-star nod as well. Also 2 assists in the postseason. Now, Zinkernagel, what I love about him is that he is such a technically great midfielder. When the ball is at his feet, he is the most comfortable. He knows what he's doing, where he's going. He can change speed from slow to fast to slow to faster with the ball at his feet and just blowing by defenders. I mean, his run last season against Charlotte to score that goal where he blows by Zaha and then beats 2 defenders, one I think from speed and one off the dribble. Like, that is just, to me, prime Zinkernagel. He can take on 1, 2, or 3 defenders on the dribble, off the dribble. He's deceptively quick, can change pace rapidly, and hopefully stays near that 30-goal contribution from last season. Now, if he's going to be playing a more central role, creative role, I would expect to see those goals go down, and hopefully the rest of the team can pick that up. But Zinkernagel can be the guy to drive the Chicago Fire bus if needed. I don't know why we'd move him off of the wing. We brought in Lud and Soletros. Those guys need to start running things from the central part of the field. Why would we move Zinkernagel off the wing I guess it's when we have like 8 guys out from injury. I don't know. If you haven't noticed, I've been a little bit more critical of Berhalter in this first episode than I have most of last season. But hey, he got his honeymoon period, so here we are. Finishing off things with Zinkernagel, he is in year 2 of a 4-year contract that runs through the 2028 season. His base salary last season, $1,450,750, and a guaranteed salary of $1,631,290. All right, got a few more wingers here to get through. Marin Haile Selassie is up next. 26-year-old from Zurich, Switzerland, 5'10", 150 pounds. His youth career was spent at FC Zurich and FC Volkswill, all in Switzerland. Came up with the Zurich senior team, turning pro in 2017, but then spent a lot of his time on loan in Switzerland. Also played for clubs Neuchâtel Xamax and Lugano, sister club of the Chicago Fire, also owned by Joe Mansueto. And in 2023, came over to the Fire on loan from Lugano. Then the Fire exercised their purchase option for the 2024 season. Haile Selassie did get some Swiss youth appearances, appearing for the U18, U19, and U20 teams, but no senior appearances as of yet. Maybe if Shaqiri actually decides to stop playing internationally, another player would get a chance. With the Chicago Fire, again, he has had 3 full seasons, appearing between 27 and 32 matches each of those 3 seasons. Now, in 23 and 24, he was almost a de facto starter, 20 and 23 starts. But last season, only 5 starts, 916 minutes in 30 total appearances. What's interesting, though, is if you look at Haile Selassie in 2024, he had 5 goals and 8 assists in 2,040 minutes. 23 starts, 27 appearances. Like, he played a lot in 2024 and had 13 goal contributions. Not bad. But last season, in 5 starts and a total of 916 minutes, he ended up with 2 goals and 8 assists. So he really fit into his role as a creator off the bench, as an attacking threat off the bench. And I expect him to continue that. A couple seasons ago, I described him as a shoot-first winger. Like, he really didn't get too much direction or coaching under Klopas, that's for sure. And so he would just take whatever opportunities he could and would try to score, try to make things happen. Understandable. But under Berhalter, we've seen him develop some playmaking skills, get a defined role off the bench. And in an ideal world, when the squad is healthy, that's an ideal world, I think Haile Selassie and Mueller are coming off the bench for Bamba and Zinkernagel, between the 65th and 85th minutes, with the lead, and they can keep the pressure on. They can turn a 1-0 game or a 2-1 game into a 3 or 4-1 game when the other team is trying to salvage a point against the Fire. It's one of those comps with the NFL where your pass rushers are at their best when the opposing team is in clear passing situations, right? When you're playing with the lead. Same thing here. Your wingers coming off the bench are in the best situation when they're coming in with a goal in hand or with a lead. I love his speed and his confidence to attack defenders. I think he does need to work on his defending a little bit more. Sometimes he can get caught up field, but overall, if his role is to come off the bench, then maybe that's something you're not as worried about. His base salary last season was $388,000, guaranteed salary $427,500, and this is the last year on his 3-year contract. So definitely a prove-it year for him, and we'll have to see how the Fire look at their total roster going into the offseason, because they've got a lot of guys who are either getting ready for options or contracts are up this year. Next winger on the roster, the aforementioned Chris Mueller, 29 years old, 5'9", 163 pounds, from Schaumburg, Illinois. Again, just up the road. There's a hotbed of talent out here if you didn't realize that. I grew up in Rockford playing youth soccer. I would come and play all these teams in the suburbs. I played Sockers. I played against Schwaben. We got our butts kicked a lot, but we held our own, and there were a few guys that I played in my U12, U14 day who ended up playing collegiately, and there were a bunch of guys who I played a little club in high school soccer who played collegiately, so I think I played with some good guys. But yeah, clubs like Soccer's, where Mueller came up with, they had the connections, they had the pathways, they had the resources. So he definitely found it. And they were able to get him into the University of Wisconsin, where he played from 2014 to 2017, and then turned pro with Chicago FC United. His breakout, though, definitely with Orlando City, 112 appearances for them before going over to Scotland and playing for Hibernian. Only 11 games, not the right fit for him. I don't know if it was a coaching thing, if it was a cultural thing, if it was just a league thing or what, but it just did not work, did not fit. But great experience for him to go overseas and get that experience. Now, he came to the Fire in 2022. I was really excited for him. Some of the Orlando City content creators that I talk with were really happy to see him back in the league, and we're kind of bummed that he went to another East Coast team. But Chris Mueller, again, a guy who knew MLS, who is a very good MLS player. Also, Mueller got 2 caps for the U.S. men's national team, both friendlies against El Salvador in 2020 and 2021. And in one of those matches, the U.S. won 6-0, Mueller with 2 goals and an assist. So a nice little moment for his international career there. Now, Mueller's had, he hasn't been like a penciled-in starter. I think the season he got the most starts was his first year in MLS in 2018 with Orlando. 23 starts, 32 appearances. Never had more than that many starts, and unfortunately for him, with the Fire, he hasn't needed to be a starter. And absolutely unfortunately for him, he ended up with a diagnosis of pericarditis last season, which is an inflammation of the sac that surrounds the heart, and was unable to play for the course of the season. Now, who knows? Maybe that served to his benefit this year, that he was able to kind of rest, recover, really understand what's going on from a tactical, academic, textbook, video film session kind of approach. And we saw it pay dividends, at least in the preseason, where at the Coachella Valley Invitational, he had 2 goals and 2 assists in those 3 matches. But didn't translate in game 1 against Houston. Only ends up with 14 minutes as a late sub, and was unable to spur the comeback for a draw. Now, in his style of play, Mueller does like to get wide, take on defenders, and shoot the ball. And under Klopas in 2024, I mean, he looked frustrated a lot of the time. You would often see him with his hands up, like asking for a pass, or looking around, even sometimes looking at the ref for fouls that he was trying to draw. Chris Mueller's not drawing any fouls. I love the guy. I love how he plays, but he's not drawing any fouls. He's not getting calls from MLS officials, right? And he looked really frustrated. When he would get the ball, his accuracy was terrible in 2024 when he was shooting for the Fire. And I think that's part of the reason why he wasn't getting a lot of these passes. I mean, credit to him for keeping on shooting, and the guy's definitely got a good mentality. If you follow him on social media, you'll see that he's all about having the right mentality. He's also started I don't know if you can call it a consulting business about building a pathway to the pros or building a pathway to college from youth soccer. So he's got the right mentality, but he needed help after that 2024 season. And fortunately, under Berhalter, he's going to get it now. Now, we haven't seen the proof yet because of his health condition last season, but hopefully he'll be able to work more within Berhalter's system, who does like to use those wings out wide, who does like to get them involved, who if you want to put a wrinkle in it, overload that wing and allow Mueller to operate with some one-on-one against opposing defenses, which he's not hesitant to do. It could turn into a really good situation for him. Again, I do see him coming off the bench behind Jonathan Bamba, or as a spot starter depth piece as they get into U.S. Open Cup play and Leagues Cup play. But what have we said? We've got Chris Mueller, who has extended his contract through 2026. There's a club option for 2027. Haile Selassie, this is the last year on his contract. Let's see. Jonathan Bamba, his contract runs through 2027 with an option for 28. Omari Glasgow, the other winger we are going to talk about in just a moment, his contract runs through this season with options for 2027 and 2028. So one of these guys has to step up and produce. And if the other two aren't, or the others that don't, may not be around Chicago much longer. Now, to wrap up Chris Mueller's summary here, his profile. Last season, his base salary was just a shade under $700,000, $699,996, but his guaranteed compensation was $762,316. Again, last year he did sign an extension through 2026 with a club option for 2027. That was a great move by the club, by the way, who really invests in their players, both as athletes and soccer players, but also as people. And for them to keep Mueller on the roster, to allow him to continue to treat and rehab from the pericarditis diagnosis, and give him the opportunity to play soccer again. It would have been really easy for the club to just say, you can't perform, you can't play, you have a medical condition, we're going to release you as a result of this medical condition, bring in someone else under the roster rules, because if there is a season-ending injury, they can bring someone else in at the same or below salary level, and they could really use that person to push for a trophy or something. But no, they had their timeline for trophies. They had their goals for last season, and I think it's just a great show of form and a great show of class how they continued to treat Mueller and give him an opportunity to continue to play and earn a living, and hey, maybe play for that other contract, if not with the Fire, with another team around MLS. Now, lastly, our last winger player we're going to profile here, Omari Glasgow, 22 years old, 5'9", 150 pounds, from Georgetown, Guyana. Turned pro in 2021 with a Guyanese team, Western Tigers FC. Gets picked up by Chicago Fire 2 in 2022. Has a really good run with them for a few seasons, 57 appearances, 15 goals. Gets on some short-term deals with the first team, and really is starting to integrate into their training and how they practice. In 2025, at the end of the season, he went on loan to Loudoun United in USL Championship, and from the beginning of this season, he was sent on loan to Monterey Bay FC, also in the USL Championship. So we will not be seeing Omari Glasgow in red in Chicago this year, barring some way for them to recall him on loan. Internationally, though, 35 appearances for the Guyana national team, 23 goals, and at 22 years old, he is already the leading goal scorer in Guyana soccer history. Now, what has he done for the senior team? Unfortunately, not much. But again, he's only 22 years old. So in 2024, only 34 minutes and 2 appearances. Last season, 4 starts, 14 appearances, 522 minutes, but does pick up an assist. And I do think he had some contributions in some of the U.S. Open Cup games as well. But again, he's 22. Got to keep reminding myself of that. You hear how great he is with Guyana. You hear how well he's played with CF2, and it's easy to forget his youth and his inexperience. Now, I love the loan move for a player like this to USL Championship. He has absolutely proven himself in CF2. He's shown that he can be a great player at the international level of the Caribbean in CONCACAF. And the next step up is the USL Championship. He'd be fighting so much for minutes, for developmental minutes against Mueller, Haile Selassie, Bamba, Zinkernagel. And then remember, when Franco gets healthy and comes back, that's going to add more depth to that midfield line. You've also got Barroso and Dean, who can push up and play in a little bit of a winger role if ever needed, or you would want to put more traditional midfielders out on the pitch. Maybe you get 4 guys like we saw, like a Saletros, Davila, Franco, and Ludd all at once, and you don't have a need for a guy like Glasgow, or another outside midfielder like we've seen here, or winger that we've seen here. So this is a great move for him to make sure he's getting a lot more minutes at a higher level of competition than MLS Next Pro, and the Fire are going to be able to really evaluate him and see what they want to do with his contract. His contract runs through this season and has club options for 2027 and 2028. Now, ultimately, I think the Fire want him to develop, over the next couple seasons into a backup winger behind stars like a Bamba or Zinkernagel. Not necessarily those guys, but guys like them. And then if he continues to take the next step up, by the time he is 25, 26, he's either getting a good first-team contract or at the position where they can transfer him for a nice, tidy transfer fee. He could be He could end up an MLS journeyman or utility man. We've seen him used as a wingback on occasion. But at the very least, I think he can develop into a stabilizing wing player for the Fire and be a solid contributor to an MLS team. Last season, he has a base salary of $104,000 and a guaranteed salary of $117,685. Last thought about Glasgow, he's in a difficult position because the Fire had to loan him out because he took up an international roster spot. So not only was it a great move for all the developmental reasons we talked about, it was a great roster compliance move because the Fire needed that international roster spot. Now, if the worst case scenario for this young man is if he's not developing at the pace the senior team wants him to, they might find that international roster spot just a little bit more valuable than what he could bring. So that's something that he's always got to have in the back of his mind and show that he is on a higher trajectory than the rest of the wingers in the room. Holy cow, this was a crazy long episode. I am so glad you all stuck around. I hope you all learned something. I hope you're more engaged and know what's going on with our Chicago Fire squad here now that we've gotten through the player profiles. I hope I didn't miss anybody. If anyone out there realizes that I missed somebody, please let me know. I was going off of the roster on the website, and I think it was up to date. So I'm just going to assume that. But yeah, reach out if there's anything more you want to know about any of these players, anything you want me to take a dive into. I'm happy to do it. Anything more you want to hear on the show, please follow along at Glasshouse Soccer on social media. Email me at glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you all at the home opener this weekend against Montreal. If you want to learn more about the club, reach out to me. I will talk to you as long as I can. I'm Greek. I'm a lawyer. I love soccer. I can talk. There's no doubt about it. And if you're still listening, you know that too. Also, I'm happy to introduce you to my season ticket reps and people within the organization who can set you up with those kind of things. And as always, fans, and especially now with the home opener around the corner, let's go Fire!